Hello there, I'm Alyssa Olenick, scientist, exercise enthusiast, weightlifter, outdoors lover, and entrepreneur. I believe that the extremes in the fitness and wellness industries are leaving way too many of us out of the conversation, not telling us the knowledge that we actually need to succeed in our health, our wellness, our nutrition, and quite frankly, our lives. They end up giving us black and white polarizing messages that leave us more confused than giving us the answers that we need. Through my 10 years of studying exercise science, metabolism, and female physiology, as well as exploring the outdoors and being a fitness athlete myself, I'm here to bring to you the conversations that need to be had in an industry that often is too far focused on extremes. So if you join me on this podcast, I truly believe that life is best lived in the messy middle. Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel or the Messy Middle podcast. First of all, before we hop into today's video and our podcast topic, I want to go ahead and ask you to nicely hit that subscribe button if you're over on the YouTube channel, and consider rating and reviewing on your favorite podcast platform. If you're also tuning on YouTube, I would love to hear below one thing that you learned from this video. We will send one person a free copy of my ebook Hybrid who leaves a comment on this video today. So good luck, and let's dive in. So today I want to talk to you about something that comes up pretty often and or lacks a lot of definition, clarity, and confusion, and that is, what exactly is hybrid training? So if you're, coming from my Instagram page, we talk about hybrid training all the time. And if you're coming from YouTube, you know that hybrid training is all of the rage nowadays. And it seems like everyone is doing it, right? So what exactly is hybrid training? What does it mean? What is it not? How do we define these things? So when it comes to hybrid training, what people are talking about most of the time is the combination of two things that seem to be competing, which is largely going to be endurance and strength, right? Those are two opposite ends of the fitness spectrum. We have strength, which is its neurological power output, strong, thick muscle fibers. And then we have endurance, which are these smaller, efficient, oxygen-consuming, highly effective muscle fibers. And you always see the classic photos of the marathon runner versus the lifter, and it's like, what body do you want? And that lacks a lot of nuance, but old school conventional thinking really pins this as being two completely opposing things. And a lot of, original exercise physiology alluded to this. And most of the time, historically, people have either been an endurance athlete or a strength athlete, right? But over the last few years, it has emerged that, strength and conditioning, the field, strength and conditioning, athletics, different types of athletes, and even the upbringing of CrossFit has brought into attention this idea that you can probably train two opposing things at once and get better in both of them to some degree. In fact, for some sports, it's essential for them to do so. But there is still this long-held belief in the fitness industry that cardio kills your gains and that running will make you wither away to nothing and weak and frail. And then there's this idea that lifting makes you bulky and heavy and strong, and two of these things are impossible to do simultaneously. And so hybrid training has been this new wave of training that has come up the last few years, and I've kind of contributed to this, I suppose, where people are both training for strength and being muscular while also pursuing endurance-based endeavors as well alongside of that. And so if you've been following me along for the last 3 years, you know that I ran a ton of ultramarathons during my PhD while also continuing to strength train. And right now I am in the process of training for another ultramarathon and continuing to strength train. And so hybrid training in its simplest form is just combining two modes of fitness in the same program. A lot of people ask me, okay, well, can hybrid be, cycling, swimming, whatever it is your activity? And yes, it's just two things that may not make sense to try to maximize their potential together. And so the thing that when it comes to hybrid training is that it is slightly different than having just two things in the same program at the same time. And so there's two words that we need to become familiar with. One is hybrid training, which we've been talking about here so far. And the other is the term concurrent training, or concurrently doing things in the training program. So this is important because I don't actually care if you use the word hybrid, and I use the hybrid for all of the people that I'm going to talk about today. But if we're thinking about our specific goals and the way we want to train, it might add some clarity for us here. So concurrent training is more of the common term in the scientific literature, especially in sports science. And it is a big mouthful, which is why I don't use this word very often, that is defining or talking about putting two or more modalities of training in the same day, week, or cycle of training, right? So this is specifically more applying to athletes, right? Like real athletes, not us everyday Joes, but we're athletes too. But talking about like combining conditioning and strength training and practice, or all of these different things, or strength and conditioning type principles, right? Again, we're talking strength and conditioning field, which have been around forever, and how that applies to our training needs or program, and how we can fit those things in to maximize those things without it interfering with the overall objective of the main performance goal, right? So this might be, you know, an Olympic marathoner who is combining all of these things together, but their main goal at the end of the day is to qualify for the Olympics and the marathon in place, right? Or an NFL linebacker who wants to be strong and powerful, but also wants to have adequate conditioning that they can still perform on the field during the day, right? There's, you know, lots of other types of sports examples here. And how can you maximize those different things within the same training program? So concurrent training is more of an example of like, hey, my primary sport is powerlifting or weightlifting or climbing or whatever it is that you're running, or whatever it is that your main goal is, but I'm going to use this other form of fitness to complement that and concurrently program it into my week of training so that it benefits me. I can get benefits from both, but I'm mixing them together. But your main large goal might still be that thing that is more on one extreme or other extreme of the spectrum. So if you have my hybrid ebook, or you win it in my giveaway here, or you've seen me talk about this on Instagram, I call this the hybrid training spectrum. And the reason I call it this is because it kind of fits the word concurrent training into the word hybrid, so that everybody can kind of talk about it in the word saying hybrid training, and what that means for them. And that's like, you know, the slogan of my training programs right now is like, define your hybrid on your terms, things like that. You'll catch me saying, because that's what I think is most important. So I believe in this hybrid training spectrum, right? And people who are on those more extreme ends of that spectrum, like I have a more running focused, endurance, triathlon focus goal, whatever that is, you know, it doesn't have to be just running. I just talk about running because people here are runners. And then you have the other end that's like, okay, well, I really care about, you know, powerlifting or weightlifting or being a bodybuilder, whatever that is. But, you know, you scooch in a little bit and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to do some resistance training and not only running, or I'm going to do some cardio, not only lifting, and fit that into my training program. But then when you get to the middle of that spectrum, you have what I call the hybrid area or hybrid training. And so I don't care if you use hybrid on either end of those spectrums. You might not want to, and that's okay too. You can just say, I do cardio for health, or I lift because it's important, right? But in the middle of that is hybrid training at its truest form and its truest definition. And that is trying to maximize two seemingly opposing forms of fitness at the same exact time. So that is when you are trying to PR your mile while also PRing your deadlift at the same time. That is when you are trying to, you know, hit a heavy back squat single in the same training cycle that you're training for a marathon, right? Or you are doing a triathlon prep while also training, you know, squat, bench, deadlift. Or you are competing in a weight training meet while also getting ready to, you know, PR your half marathon. You get what I'm saying. It doesn't have to get me running, whatever it is for you, but you're trying to do two things at the same time, but you're not just trying to do one while hanging on to the other. You're trying to kind of maximize doing both. Now, this doesn't mean you're not going to shift back and forth. My seasons approach that I talk about with hybrid training talks about how to alternate those goals across the year so you can objectively improve both of those things over time. And they don't always have to be at their best and highest performance at the same time, but overall, you're trying to maintain high quality aspects of those within your training simultaneously, even if you're maintaining for a little bit or the other. So hybrid training in its truest form is going to be trying to maximize the potential of two different things, whatever that is for you, in one training program at the same time, right? Where you might shift a little bit more, where you might be like, hey, I'm hybrid training, but I care a little bit more about my endurance goals. Or that might be the season that you're in, and that's great. Or you might be, hey, I'm hybrid training, but I care a little bit more about my resistance training goals. And the thing about hybrid training that is great is that in my philosophy, and why I let everyone use the word hybrid, even if it's not functionally correct by what people are going to be nitpicky about, right? Like ruining people's joy. Let people have the things that make them feel good. Use hybrid if you want to use the word hybrid. Is that the reason that's important, besides that, and defining what fitness means to you and what you enjoy, you want to do, is that sometimes when it comes to our hybrid training goals, you have to lean more towards one side of that spectrum versus the other to bring up the characteristics of the traits that you're lacking. So a great example is that I just spent a really long time doing a really heavy strength training, bulking, hypertrophy strength season while finishing up my PhD, but I kind of neglected cardio. And then I got hurt, which just not even worse, right? And so right now I'm leaning a little bit more heavy on the cardio side, but I'm still trying to maintain those characteristics of strength. And what's beautiful about hybrid training is when you spend those seasons building up those things, like I intentionally spent that strength season because I knew I wanted to get back into ultras and really focus on that, is that you don't lose everything when you maintain or pull back a little bit. You can do less to preserve it, maintain those traits and characteristics while pushing the other things. So the true hybrid to me is that middle of that spectrum where things are overlapping and you're always oscillating between those different characteristics to improve and refine them. And a great example of this, I know a lot of you like to do CrossFit. I'm a fan of CrossFit. I have no issue with CrossFit. We offer a Metcon program within my training programs. I'm CrossFit level 1 certified and my assistant coach is level 2 certified. I bring a lot of characteristics from CrossFit into my training and like my training theories and methodology and things like that for a reason. And this is a great example of a sport where you're doing that, where you're trying to improve multiple characteristics of fitness in the same training program. And most good CrossFit training programs, depending on what your gym does and what they do, or if you follow the full training prescription from the whatever company they're getting their programming from, they're going to oscillate you through different characteristics of things across the year. So you're not always focusing on just strength. You're not always focusing on short Metcons. You're not always focusing on endurance. You're going to have different goals of the training cycles that will oscillate within that little bit of the spectrum. The ideal is that you're just not on these very extreme ends, even if you're shifting between them. And what's great about hybrid training is that over years, you will refine and build more characteristics, traits, and skills. And overall, it's my hybrid training pyramid that I talk about in my ebook or online here, is that you are working on the basic characteristics and being able to build up to have that true hybrid. So when it comes to hybrid training, the definition is to the point. It's going to be simply doing two seemingly opposing things in the same training program and trying to maximize your potential in both. But it can be whatever you want it to be. It's not that serious. And I feel like some people get dogmatic about it, like hybrid has to be these things, hybrid means these things. And to some degree, there's all good training programs are going to have a concurrent aspect to them. I truly deeply believe that the best form of fitness for metabolic health and longevity and health in general is concurrent training, a mix of strength and conditioning that's built to the exercise guidelines. Like we should all be hybrid to some degree, but we can also define hybrid and what that means to us. So hopefully this helped give you some clarity on what that means, not feeling like you have to take ownership of a word if you don't want to, but also feeling like you can own the word if you want to. And me giving you permission to define what that means to you, totally fine. What hybrid actually is and what it looks like for you may be different. And I think the most important thing to take away from this is that when we talk about maximizing our potential in two things at once, that doesn't mean you have to be the best in the world. That means you need to be the best that you are and you can be. So if your best is running, a 2.5 hour half marathon and back squatting 150 pounds because that's where you're at, that's hybrid training and that's your hybrid, right? You don't have to be the person who is back squatting 400 pounds and running a sub 130 half marathon for your hybrid account and be meaningful. It can be whatever it means to you. And the goal of hybrid in all fitness and time is to improve on both of those characteristics across time. So hopefully this helped you out. If you found something helpful, educational, beneficial, again, enter the giveaway in the comments here on YouTube within the first week of the video being up. And we will pick a winner, but make sure you are subscribed. And if you're tuning in on the podcast, rating, reviewing helps. It means so much. And if you want to come over to YouTube to enter the giveaway, you are free to do that as well. If you're looking for a program that does that for you, my training programs are set up exactly like this in my seasons training approach so that you can combine lifting and running or lifting with whatever your endurance goals are across the season so you can progress and make progress in your hybrid and define what that means to you. And we will put the link here in the YouTube notes and the show notes to join the list method and join us in the app if you're interested in doing that. And otherwise, we will catch you on the next video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great hybrid week.